you and Gary and the team exposed what ended up being kind of an international exposure to some of the abuses going on in Cambodia. I mean, that was a big thing to be a part of. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, we had been investigating some human trafficking issues in Southeast Asia and specifically in Cambodia, and even more specifically in a village called Svay Pa in Cambodia, and an area where young girls were being sold for sex, and oftentimes to Western men. I mean, that was an interesting thing, including a doctor who at the time was from Tulsa, Oklahoma. And so we put together an investigative case, did quite a bit of data gathering to understand the scope of the problem. And then, I was on the ground when we did a raid on those various brothels and were able to secure some of those young girls out of those brothels. We for a multitude of reasons, we ended up bringing Dateline NBC with us, and they later did a piece called Children for Sale about that time on the ground.
I mean, that is what I recall is that was a pretty seminal piece that really opened up the doors and highlighted that specific doctorate and what they were doing and brought the challenges that were happening there home to actual real Americans participating in it. It was extraordinary. Um,
I think that's
what
right. I mean, justice, though, is interesting, right? Because there's different forms. And that was one of the most frustrating things is the perpetrators, the gentlemen who were using the girls, a lot of them didn't really see that day in court the same way that the brothel owners did.
right, right. Well, that's the ever present tension that that I know from knowing you that you constantly have to deal with in your heart. And it's also the tension that it's kind of part of the deal when you do what you do. You show up and you expose your heart, yourself to these human challenges that oftentimes hurt and don't always go perfectly to plan. And you and I have done that together over the years, but it's something that takes a toll. And I've always witnessed that in you, and you've handled it with such grace, and you never, ever have shied away from the fight.